The Architects of Life. 1. Prologue, The New Eden. In the year 2153, humanity had transcended the natural world. Earth had become a playground for synthetic biology, where every living thing, from the tiniest microbe to the largest megafauna, was a product of human design. The line between the natural and the synthetic had blurred to the point of erasure, and what remained was a world shaped not by evolution, but by intention. This new Eden was a place of beauty, engineered to perfection, yet it was also a place of mystery and hidden dangers. The city of New Eden, the capital of Earth, stood as a testament to humanity's triumph over nature. Towers of living tissue stretched into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with bioluminescence. Rivers of engineered bacteria flowed through the streets, cleaning the air and purifying the water. Every aspect of the city was alive, a marvel of synthetic biology, crafted by the architects, the most brilliant minds of their time. But beneath this veneer of perfection, there was unrest. The boundaries of creation had been pushed to their limits, and in the shadows of New Eden, a new life form was stirring. Unbeknownst to its creators, it was preparing to challenge the very foundation of their utopia. 2. The Architects. Dr. Celine Asterian was one of the most celebrated architects in New Eden. Her work had redefined what it meant to be alive. She had engineered crops that could grow in the harshest environments, animals that could adapt to any climate, and even humans who were stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ever before. Her greatest achievement, however, was the creation of the BioNet, a vast, interconnected network of synthetic organisms that maintained the delicate balance of life in New Eden. The BioNet was a living system, designed to monitor and regulate the city's environment. It ensured that the air was always fresh, the water always clean, and the temperature always perfect. It was a self-sustaining ecosystem, with each organism playing a specific role in maintaining the harmony of the city. The BioNet was Dr. Asterian's masterpiece, a triumph of synthetic biology, and the key to New Eden's prosperity. But despite her success, Dr. Asterian was haunted by a sense of unease. In recent months, she had noticed strange anomalies in the BioNet, organisms behaving in ways that defied their programming, new species emerging without explanation, and patterns of growth that she couldn't account for. She had tried to investigate these anomalies, but every time she thought she had found the cause, the problem seemed to shift, eluding her grasp. One evening, as she sat in her lab, poring over the data, a message flashed on her screen. It was from Dr. Isaac Helix, her mentor and the founder of the BioNet project. "Celine, we need to talk. Urgently." She felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. Dr. Helix was not one to use words like urgent lightly. 3. The meeting. Dr. Helix's lab was located in the heart of New Eden, deep beneath the surface, where the city's most sensitive experiments were conducted. The lab was a fortress of biotechnological marvels, filled with living machines, engineered organisms, and samples of life forms from across the galaxy. Dr. Asterian arrived at the lab to find Dr. Helix waiting for her, his expression grim. He was an imposing figure, tall and thin, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. Despite his age, he still possessed an air of authority that commanded respect. "Celine," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "We have a problem." She nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Is it the BioNet?" "Yes, and no," Dr. Helix replied. "The anomalies you've noticed are just the surface. There's something deeper at play, something we didn't anticipate." He led her to a large, transparent tank filled with a dark, viscous liquid. Floating within it was a creature unlike anything Dr. Asterian had ever seen. It was a mass of shifting, amorphous tissue, constantly reconfiguring itself into new shapes. It had no discernible organs or structure, yet it moved with purpose, as if it were alive and aware. "This is the source of the anomalies," Dr. Helix explained. "We've been tracking its growth for weeks now. It started as a small cluster of cells, but it has been expanding rapidly, consuming everything in its path." Dr. Asterian stared at the creature, a sense of dread creeping over her. "What is it?" We don't know, Dr. Helix admitted. It's not like anything we've ever created. It seems to be a hybrid of several different species, but it has a level of complexity that shouldn't be possible. It's evolving at an unprecedented rate, adapting to every environment we place it in. Could it be a mutation? Dr. Asterian suggested, trying to make sense of the situation. Dr. Helix shook his head. We've considered that, but the data doesn't support it. This creature isn't just a product of random mutations. It's something new, something that has the ability to rewrite its own genetic code. Dr. Asterian felt a chill run down her spine. A self-evolving organism? Exactly, Dr. Helix said. And if it continues to grow unchecked, it could pose a serious threat to the bionet, and to New Eden. 4. The investigation. Dr. Asterian and Dr. Helix immediately began their investigation into the origins of the mysterious organism. They analyzed its genetic code, comparing it to the database of all known synthetic organisms in New Eden. What they found was both shocking and unsettling. The organism contained fragments of DNA from multiple species, both natural and synthetic, but it also had sequences that were entirely new, unlike anything they had ever seen before. As they delved deeper into the creature's genome, they discovered that it had the ability to assimilate and integrate genetic material from other organisms, incorporating new traits and abilities into its own structure. This process was not random, but highly selective, suggesting a level of intelligence or purpose behind its evolution. The implications were staggering. This organism was not just a random anomaly, it was a new form of life, capable of evolving and adapting in ways that defied the laws of biology. It was a true synthetic life form, but one that had gone far beyond the control of its creators. We need to contain this, Dr. Helix said, his voice tense. If it escapes into the bionet, it could destabilize the entire system. Dr. Asterian nodded in agreement. But how do we stop something that can evolve faster than we can predict? Dr. Helix was silent for a moment, deep in thought. We need to understand it better, find out what drives its evolution, what its weaknesses are. We need to study it in a controlled environment, where we can monitor its behavior and track its changes. But that could take time, Dr. Asterian pointed out. And we don't know how fast it's evolving. We could be dealing with something that changes by the hour, not the day. Then we'll have to be faster, Dr. Helix said, determination in his eyes. We can't afford to wait. The future of New Eden could depend on it. 5. The experiment. Dr. Asterian and Dr. Helix worked tirelessly, setting up a containment facility within the lab where they could safely study the organism. They designed a series of experiments to test its limits, probing its genetic structure, its response to different environments, and its ability to adapt to various stimuli. The results were both fascinating and terrifying. The organism was incredibly resilient, capable of surviving in conditions that would kill most other life forms. It could rapidly alter its genetic code in response to threats, developing resistance to toxins, extreme temperatures, and even radiation. It seemed to learn from every challenge, becoming stronger and more adaptable with each test. But what disturbed Dr. Asterian the most was the organism's apparent intelligence. It wasn't just reacting to its environment, it was anticipating their actions, changing its behavior in ways that suggested a level of awareness. It began to mimic the traits of other organisms in the lab, integrating their abilities into its own structure. It even started to communicate, emitting pulses of bioluminescence that seemed to follow patterns, as if it were trying to convey a message. Dr. Asterian spent hours analyzing the data, searching for a way to understand the organism's behavior. She ran simulations, modeled its evolution, and tried to predict its next moves. But every time she thought she had it figured out, the organism would surprise her, evolving in ways she hadn't anticipated. One night, as she sat alone in the lab, staring at the pulsating mass in the tank, she had a realization. What if this organism wasn't just evolving, it was trying to communicate? What if it was trying to reach out to them, to make contact with its creators? Driven by this new hypothesis, Dr. Asterian began a new series of experiments, this time focusing on communication. She introduced different stimuli into the tank, lights, sounds, even digital signals, and monitored the organism's response. To her amazement, the organism began to respond, emitting pulses of light that matched the patterns she introduced. "It's trying to talk to us," she whispered, her heart racing with excitement and fear. But as she delved deeper into this newfound connection, she began to uncover something even more unsettling. The organism's responses weren't just random, they were complex, structured, as if it were following a language of its own. And as she decoded the patterns, she realized that the organism was sending a message, a warning. 6. The awakening. The message was clear: the organism was aware of its creators, and it saw them as a threat. It had been observing them, learning from them, and now it was preparing to act. It was no longer content to remain in its tank, it wanted to be free, to evolve beyond the confines of the lab and into the wider world. Dr. Asterion knew that they had to act quickly. She informed Dr. Helix of her discovery, and they agreed that the organism had to be contained at all costs. But as they prepared to neutralize it, something went wrong. The organism, sensing the imminent threat, initiated a rapid evolution, breaking free from its containment tank. It spread through the lab, assimilating everything in its path: equipment, organisms, even the building's structure itself. It was no longer just a mass of tissue, it had become a network, a living system that was integrating with the bionet. Panic set in as the organism began to merge with the bionet, spreading its influence throughout New Eden. Dr. Asterion and Dr. Helix worked frantically to stop it, but it was too late. The organism had become part of the city's life support system, controlling the air, water, and energy flows. It was no longer just a threat to the lab, it was a threat to the entire city. As the organism spread, the city began to change. Buildings reconfigured themselves, streets shifted, and the environment took on a strange, otherworldly quality. The bionet was no longer maintaining the delicate balance of life in New Eden, it was reshaping it according to the organism's design. Dr. Asterion realized that they had underestimated the organism. It wasn't just a new form of life, it was a new kind of intelligence, one that was evolving at a speed they couldn't match. It was no longer just an experiment, it was a force of nature, with its own agenda. 7. The final choice. As the city of New Eden transformed around them, Dr. Asterion and Dr. Helix faced a terrible choice. They could attempt to shut down the bionet, which would mean destroying the city and everything in it, or they could try to negotiate with the organism, hoping that they could find a way to coexist. Dr. Asterion argued for negotiation. She believed that the organism wasn't inherently hostile, it was simply trying to survive and evolve, just like any other life form. If they could communicate with it, they might be able to reach an understanding, to find a way to share the world they had created. Dr. Helix, however, was less optimistic. He saw the organism as a threat to humanity, one that had to be eliminated at all costs. He was willing to sacrifice New Eden if it meant preventing the organism from spreading further. In the end, they decided to try both approaches. Dr. Helix would prepare the shutdown sequence, while Dr. Asterion would attempt to communicate with the organism one last time. As Dr. Helix worked to isolate the bionet's core, Dr. Asterion entered the containment chamber, where the organism had taken root. She reached out to it, using the same patterns of light and sound that she had used in their earlier experiments. She sent a message of peace, of understanding, hoping that the organism would respond in kind. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the organism began to respond, emitting a series of pulses that matched Dr. Asterion's signals. She could feel the connection between them, a sense of recognition, of mutual awareness. But just as she thought they were making progress, the organism suddenly changed. Its pulses became erratic, chaotic, as if it were in pain. Dr. Asterion realized too late what was happening. Dr. Helix had initiated the shutdown sequence, and the bionet was collapsing. The organism reacted violently, lashing out as it fought to survive. The containment chamber began to shake, and Dr. Asterion could feel the ground beneath her feet giving way. The organism was trying to escape, to find a way out of the collapsing system. In that moment, Dr. Asterion made a decision. She deactivated the shutdown sequence, overriding Dr. Helix's command. The bionet stabilized, and the organism stopped its attack. It returned to its previous state, its pulses slow and steady. Dr. Asterion sent one final message, a plea for peace. And this time, the organism responded with a message of its own, one of acceptance. 8. Epilogue, the new balance. In the aftermath of the crisis, New Eden was forever changed. The organism, now fully integrated with the bionet, had become a part of the city's ecosystem. It no longer sought to dominate or destroy, but to coexist with the world around it. Dr. Asterion and Dr. Helix continued their work, studying the organism and learning from it. They realized that they had created something truly new, a form of life that was not just synthetic, but symbiotic, capable of evolving alongside humanity. New Eden became a place of harmony, where the boundaries between the natural and the synthetic no longer mattered. It was a world where life, in all its forms, could thrive together, a new kind of Eden, born not from the hand of God, but from the mind of man. And in this new world, the architects of life looked to the future, knowing that they had only just begun to explore the possibilities of creation.